Welcome to the Mount Pleasant Podcast, featuring discussions and interviews about the people, places, and events that make Mount Pleasant such a special place.
This is the Mount Pleasant Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Cleary, and all thanks to the great people of Mount Pleasant Magazine, I get the honor, the privilege of introducing you to Mount Pleasant, the people who make it such a special place to do business, to work, and even to live. We're introducing you to Mount Pleasant's best on the Mount Pleasant Podcast. It's a place that's been part of major motion pictures. Celebrity weddings have happened there, but it may be someplace that you drive by on Long Point Road or look over from Highway 17. When's the last time you made a visit to Boone Hall Plantation? You know, this isn't a place just for tourists, and it's our subject today on the Mount Pleasant Podcast. Brian Cleary, joined by the general manager of Boone Hall Plantation and Farm, Jim Westerhold. Jim, thanks so much for taking your time to talk about what I know is a passion for you. Lots of people here in the Lowcountry have come in from other places, Ohio, say. They may not know a lot about Boone Hall Plantation. Could you give us a little bit of a history behind the plantation?
Yeah, Brian, well, thank you for that. It's definitely a goal of ours to entice locals to see what tourists see every day. A lot of tourists see every day. And so the history is probably the biggest part here that we would like for our locals to get. And that is history that starts in 1681. So well over 300 years of history right here. And it starts with the history of these live oaks, this beautiful Live Oak Avenue that are 300 years of age, and history from then up until now. And of course, that includes the history of the enslaved and Gullah and the Gullah culture. And then we can talk about the movies that you referenced, Brian. The Notebook, for example, is one of them, and talk about all of the other ins and outs and history that occurs at Boone Hall over the past years and still occurs today.
Lots of history at the plantation, but you guys always have something going on. Tell me about some of the newer things. Maybe if I haven't been to the plantation and farm in a couple of years, what might I see that wasn't there in the past?
As you enter down this Live Oak Avenue, one of the first buildings you see now is the gin house, which was originally constructed in the 1850s by the enslaved, but was boarded up and braced up for 17 years in the early 2000s. A year and a half ago, we opened it back up for tourism, for history presentations. Downstairs is a museum. Upstairs is a very nice historic event space, and we added bathrooms. And so very nice welcome center now that we formerly did not have for 17 years. And so that building is quite an attraction, and it by itself can take our visitors through an hour, the hour of the first visit. On the event side, we've added some more events over the last couple of years. One coming up in February is Black History Month. And that whole month is special presentations for Black history that put on by local community engagement. And then we've added a Gullah Christmas at the end of the year, and we've added a Christmas tree festival on the farm side in November, on to the traditional events such as Wine of the Oaks and Lowcountry Oyster Festival, the Pumpkin Patch, and the Strawberry Festival.
You mentioned the Oaks. It must be something pretty special, because anytime I drive into Boone Hall Plantation, just making that drive down that dirt road, I don't know how you do it every day. I mean, it takes my breath away sometimes. For people who haven't experienced that, they're really missing out.
No doubt. No doubt. And I always talk with our long-term employees about how we get to do this every day. We drive down the Avenue of Oaks, and it never gets old, Brian. It never, ever gets old. Even to us, they get to drive it every day. And we talk about the day that drive gets old, or the day that we no longer recognize how blessed we are to be able to drive down that Avenue of Oaks, is probably should be our last day of being on the Boone Hall team here, because we should never take that for granted. And we don't. We know we're blessed when we arrive for the day down that Avenue of Oaks, or leave in the afternoon and go back down that Avenue of Oaks. We know we've been blessed by the folks that planted those trees a long, long time ago just for our benefit.
It's one of the jewels of Mount Pleasant. It's Boone Hall Plantation and Farm, and Jim Westerhold is the general manager, and he is our guest today, where the pages of Lowcountry, Mount Pleasant Magazine come alive. and this is the Mount Pleasant Podcast. I'm Brian Cleary. Thanks so much for joining us. Jim, people maybe sometimes leave off the part. Everybody refers to Boone Hall Plantation, but it's Boone Hall Plantation and Farm. It's a working farm that you have there in Mount Pleasant.
Thanks, Brian. A lot of people do not see that as a farm as part of this plantation, but it is. This property is a total of 738 acres. Now in the middle of Mount Pleasant, 100,000 people, and it's a really unique 738 acres because not only does it have the historic side that we previously talked about, but it also has the farm. And I'm not sure anywhere else on this side of Charleston can you find a farm that's as engaging like this. We do have plenty of vegetables that we grow, along with cover crops such as sunflowers and other flowers that people can come out and engage with and find a sense of belonging to a farm, picking their own vegetables, for example, right here in Mount Pleasant where they're growing. It doesn't get any more local than that. We don't ship our strawberries in. We grow them right here, for example, and we invite our public out to come pick their own strawberries and eat them right there in the field. And that's what we really find our pride in, and our enjoyment is seeing children, specifically children who may have no other ties to where their food comes from, to being able to pick their own produce and eat it right there off of the branch.
Been there, done that. You pick strawberry. That's an annual thing my wife and I love to do. So if you're driving up Highway 17, that's where you get a really good shot of the farm part of Boone Hall, at least some part. I mean, over 700 acres. Obviously, you got a lot of ground there. But one of the newer buildings is Willie's Roadhouse Market. Two things about that. Explain who Willie is, and then talk a little bit about the market as well.
Also a great topic that I love to talk about, Willie McRae. Willie was 1 year old when his parents bought this property in 1955. And the McRae family, including Willie, his sister Elizabeth, and mom and dad are from Ellerbe, North Carolina, but they would spend a good bit of time at Boone Hall. And Willie would come to know Boone Hall as his life, starting in his mid-20s, all the way up until 2020 when he died of cancer. So he made Boone Hall his life and work and enjoyment and friends and family. That Boone Hall was it for Willie. And so shortly after his death, we constructed that building, which is now Willie's Roadside Produce Market on Highway 17, in honor of Willie, and a desire that everybody understands that because of Willie, we will always have a farm. And there likely will always be produce for our community to come pick. Because Willie, shortly before his death, put this property into a conservation easement, and thereby limiting future development. In fact, he wrote restrictions on future uses of this property that includes one restriction, no more than 5 houses on 738 acres. Another restriction, no paved roads. And so if you do come out to some of our festivals and you experience some dirt roads, maybe dusty, sometimes maybe a little muddy, keep in mind, we will always have that characteristic. And that's one of the characteristics that Willie wanted. We will have that characteristic forever. But it also means that we're going to remain a farm forever and a historic venue forever. It'll never be a golf course. It'll never be a Walmart or another housing development. It'll always be, as you're seeing it today, likely this forever. And so that's Willie. And we have to give a lot of credit to Willie for leaving us this property that we get to enjoy.
And I don't know if you can stress that enough, because obviously Mount Pleasant is a place that has expanded and grown in retail and roads and this and that. But our children and our children's children, then, Willie's made it certain that Boone Hall Plantation and Farm is going to be here for generations, I guess.
Yeah, forever. And it's hard to calculate how long forever is. But you're right. For our generations, our children's children's children, and you can keep going. But again, this will always be a place, no matter how Mount Pleasant changes in the future. And a lot of people have seen Mount Pleasant change so that we don't have farms anymore. And so this farm will be here forever. And so children will always have a place to come play on a farm and engage with a farm. And it's hard to stress that enough. Because Mount Pleasant has seen so many changes, most of which we recognize Mount Pleasant as a great place to live and be. And given that it also has a farm, makes it even one more place that can't be compared with so many other urban areas. And so Boone Hall Boone Hall Plantation is, again, one of those unique properties that adds even more value to living in Mount Pleasant.
In 1982, it was East Cooper Magazine. Now it's Mount Pleasant Magazine. Mount Pleasant Magazine is about the people, places, and events that make Mount Pleasant a great place to live, work, and raise a family. Your community, your magazine. Mount Pleasant Magazine.
You're listening to the Mount Pleasant Podcast.
You read about it in the pages of Mount Pleasant Magazine, and then we get to go a little deeper here in the Mount Pleasant Podcast with me, Brian Cleary. Thanks so much for joining us. Jim Westerhold is the general manager of Boone Hall Plantation and Farm, and he is our guest today. Jim, let me find out a little bit about you personally. Let's go to the hard questions first. Carolina or Clemson? Where do you land in that battle?
Well, I have a master's degree from Clemson, and so I'm a Clemson diehard. My daughter is graduating from Clemson in 2 days, and so even though my wife went to Carolina, she is outnumbered now. And me personally, Brian, a hardcore Tigers fan.
If I'm going to get one piece of produce from Boone Hall on your recommendation, give me one.
Yeah, it'd be their strawberries. They're really hard to beat. What is unique, I think, for all of our vegetables, and everyone should know this, is they're all planted by hand, all maintained by hand, and all picked by hand.
Wow. And
so there's a lot of time and effort and expertise that go into all of our vegetables. But the strawberries are the one that are riskiest through the winter. And through a lot of new funguses and diseases that are hitting strawberry farmers really hard these days. Our strawberries are the ones that we think taste the best because that we put a lot of labor into them, a lot of labor and love into them.
So we're in Mount Pleasant, obviously. Local shrimp's a big thing. If you're ordering up shrimp, what way are you going to order, Jim?
Oh, I like it fried. I'm a Southern fried everything.
You and me both. Fried shrimp, bring it on. So one other question. Tell me a little bit about, maybe it's a secret, maybe it's not. People don't know about you, but what is your connection with kidney donation?
Thanks, Brian, for bringing this up. I've had so many great blessings in my life. Boone Hall is one of them. Getting to know Willie McRae is one of them as well. And so several years ago, I made a decision to try and give back the best way I could. I'm a relatively healthy man. And so besides giving blood, I felt like there's another way of giving back. And I have had at the time 2 healthy kidneys. And so I decided to donate a kidney, and it went to a stranger who at the time was a stranger. Since then, he's no longer a stranger and becoming like a brother to me, one of my greatest fans. I'm a greatest fan of his. He's been through a pretty hard time to get to where he could get to a kidney, be a kidney recipient. And so really thrilled to be able to tell this story of how someone who's been blessed and just trying to give back. And in the long run, Brian, the real story here is I've received 10 times over from anything that I thought I might have been giving up at the time.
Still, that had to be I don't know if the word difficult is right, but certainly that's not a decision you made lightly.
No, it wasn't. I worked on it for several years, maybe the last 10 years or so. And then I decided I would go through the process until the medical professionals told me I wasn't a good candidate. Well, they never did. Yeah. The medical process by itself is, 6 to 8 months, even if you're in a hurry. And so it doesn't happen quickly. It takes some time. Very supportive family that also agreed with me that this is a good thing for the community. It could be a good thing for another person. So not taken lightly, but I would definitely do it again if I could.
It's amazing. Well, Jim, let's get back to talking more about another of your passions, obviously giving back to the community. It's something that Boone Hall does as well. But we're talking about Boone Hall Plantation and Farm in Mount Pleasant today here on the Mount Pleasant Podcast with the general manager of Boone Hall Plantation and Farm, Jim Westerhold. Jim, I mentioned a celebrity wedding there. You've got this amazing facility, the Cotton Dock, and local people can get married there. This is something where parties go on. Explain a little bit to people about what the Cotton Dock is and how it's used.
The Cotton Dock is a really unique place, again, given in a unique property. You enter the Cotton Dock down to Live Oak Avenue, And the cotton dock is built from Pecky cypress. So the lumber in it is very, very unique. It's on the water, has a dock. Historically, it's where all of the products and produce would have been shipped in and out of the plantation. And so this is a really unique history here and provides opportunities for everyone visiting it just for the cotton dock, but also see a little bit of the history that's here. Natalie and Amelia, our wedding directors and co-directors, do a great job of putting on a show at the cotton dock and making sure that the people that visit the cotton dock see how great an opportunity this is on a really unique property to come visit. We also have another venue, the upstairs of the cotton dock now, which is, again, an 1850s building. It's a little bit smaller than the cotton dock, but also a very unique historic building that we also can have some venues on.
So you've got Boone Hall that's great for tourists to visit, weddings, things like that. There's also an educational aspect of Boone Hall Plantation and Farm. Isn't that correct?
That's right. That's our biggest part of our mission, is provide that history education to all of our visitors. And so we do a lot of field trips for children. We do a lot of conferences for small businesses on the historic side, but also on the farm side. So again, come strawberry season, we'll have thousands of school children that come through and pick their own strawberries right on a class field trip. And the same thing with our pumpkin patch in the fall. And we're always trying to expand and open those doors up for more educational groups to come experience the history and the farm that we have.
If I'm to come on a tour of Boone Hall Plantation and your expert knowledge here, I guess it's something you could probably spend all day and not see everything at the Boone Hall Plantation. But how much time is probably a good time to set aside to come visit the plantation?
Yeah, we say 4 to 5 hours. That's one of, if you call it a complaint from folks that visit, when I see them at the end of the day, they say, we didn't plan enough time here. We did 2 or 3 tours, but we didn't schedule enough time to do all of it. And they want to come back and they want to schedule more. And one way that we're unique is that our visitors pay one admission price at the gate and everything is included. And so when our visitors come through the gate, we want them to do all tours that are included, well over 8, 9 tours. And so we want them to experience all of Boone Hall, including the farm, and including the buildings that I talked about and the trees and the history of the enslaved. We want our visitors to take in all of that, and that's going to be 4 to 5 hours at least.
You've been there a long time. You know the ins and outs. There has to be something on the farm, on the plantation, maybe a little hidden gem that you know about that maybe other people don't realize or folks may skip over. Is there something like that you can share? That's
a great question. It's hard to put my finger on one thing because as the seasons change here, the answer could be quite a bit different from this time of year where wildlife are very abundant. Bald eagles, white-tailed deer, wild turkeys can easily be seen. And then in the summer, it's all of our produce that's grown in the fields that our visitors can see. The gardens always look great as well, Brian, but they change through seasons as well. Our garden staff, our horticultural staff does a great job of transferring our gardens depending on the seasons. And so any given season, it could be a different answer to that question, but it's always special to visit and see. Back to the trees, for example, as I'm looking out the window now, looking on this live oak avenue, after a rain, the resurrection fern on those live oaks give that avenue a whole different look. And so sometimes my answer to that question depends on the day and exactly what we're experiencing.
And for folks who come out and some of the great events that you have, as you mentioned before, Wine Under the Oaks and the Strawberry Festival and things like that, people that come to those events, the locals love them, but they need to realize as well, they're still missing a huge part by not going to see the plantation itself.
Yeah, no doubt. We love when we have those big festivals and people visit and they talk about Boone Hall and what they're seeing on that day. But as I just explained, every day is a little different, but every day, except for those large festivals, every day we present history and education. And if they're coming just for those festivals, if they're coming just for Wine of the Oaks or just for the Lowcountry Oyster Festival, they are only getting a small sample of what they could receive if they come on a day when we're not having those festivals or presenting our history.
Come for the festivals, but don't forget to visit the plantation. It's Boone Hall Plantation and Farm. It's really a jewel of our Lowcountry community and such a great benefit for the town of Mount Pleasant as well. Jim Westerhold is the general manager. Jim, thanks for all you do there. You've been there a while. I think the future holds you sticking around for a little bit.
I hope so. I can't take credit for this. Obviously, it's a huge team. As long as there's a team here, that I hope to be a part of it.
Boone Hall Plantation, a part of Mount Pleasant and a part of today's Mount Pleasant podcast, where the pages of Mount Pleasant magazine come alive. Jim Westerhold, thanks for your time. I'm Brian Cleary. Thank you for joining us for today's Mount Pleasant podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for spending your time with the Mount Pleasant podcast, your community, your podcast. Listen to past and future episodes at mountpleasantpodcast.com.